everyone, or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Maria, and today's video is going to be a how much I realistically read in a week as a person with a full-time job, and as someone who, reading and reviewing isn't something I kind of do professionally or anything like that. But yeah, I just thought this was a fun one. I've seen quite a few people do it recently, and I just thought it would be a fun one to kind of test. I actually don't really know how many pages I read in a week or anything like that. Very much varies depending on how busy my week is. But yeah, I just thought this would be a fun one, and I've got a few books that I'm going to be reading that I think you'd probably enjoy getting some reviews and kind of reading along with me. So yeah, I thought this would be a good week to start it. So I have actually already been reading today, so I generally tend to read kind of when I'm getting ready. And just a note, I will be including audiobooks in this because they count as reading, in my opinion. I'm not here to argue about it, but yeah, I'll definitely be including my audiobooks because a lot of the time I will be listening to audio as well as reading. So I do kind of tend to do a lot of immersive reading as well. But if I go on a walk and I'm reading the audiobook while I'm walking, I personally count that as reading. So I will be counting that when I'm going along. But I did actually just finish a book today. So I finished God's Grave by J. Christoph. So it's part of the Nevernight series. And I just finished it today. And let's just say that series I highly, highly, highly recommend. But I will be putting a review of it on my bookstagram. So if you do want to see that, go and check it out there. But yeah, my reading today was basically centered around trying to finish that book because I wanted to start a fresh book for this vlog as well. It does mean that I read from page 342 of God's Grave up until page 419. And now I'm going to have to try and do some quick maths to see what that means. I think that comes to 77 pages. If it's wrong, don't correct me, but I'll use a calculator to calculate it later. But I think that comes to 77 pages. So yeah, so far today I've read 77 pages. That's kind of just been in the morning when I was getting ready, and any little breaks that I had, I'd maybe pick it up and read, a few pages in between meetings and things like that. I work from home, so I do have a bit more time maybe than most to be able to kind of read in between breaks or at lunchtime, things like that. So yeah, so far today I've read 77 pages. I did go to the gym this morning, so it did kind of cut some of my reading time, and it's about 5 p.m. now. I've just been filming my mid-year wrap-up, so it kind of cut into my reading time as well. But I am about to start a new book, as I say, and the book I'm going to be picking up is Leigh Bardugo's The Familiar. So this is one that I've been highly anticipating since it was announced that it was going to be released. This is another adult book from Leigh Bardugo, and I do think I prefer her adult novels. I have enjoyed her YA novels, so obviously Six of Crows is an absolute favourite of mine. I really did enjoy it, but Shadow and Bone for me was just okay. I haven't read the last two books in kind of that Grisha first. I do need to get to those, but I really, really, really loved her Ninth House series, and it was kind of her, I think it may have been her adult debut. Really loved it. It was kind of the type of writing that I really love. It was kind of dark academia and definite trigger warnings for Ninth House. I don't know if there is a trigger warning, but there's a certain scene in that book that definitely just check some trigger warnings for that one before you go into it. But yeah, so I was really intrigued to see that she was bringing out a new adult novel, and this one is completely different than anything else that she's written from my understanding. So it is fantasy, so it's still kind of in that fantasy realm, but I think it's kind of more to do with magical realism. And I'll just read the synopsis because I'm probably going to do a really bad job of kind of summarising what it's supposed to be about. But it says, in a shabby house in the new capital of Madrid, Luisa Cortado uses scraps of magic to get through her days of endless toil. But when her scheming mistress discovers her scullion is hiding a talent for little miracles, she demands Luisa use those gifts to win over the royal court. Determined to seize this chance to better her fortunes, Luisa plunges into a world of power-hungry nobility, desperate kings, holy men and seers, where the lines between magic, science and fraud blur. With the powers of the Inquisition burning, she must use every bit of her wit and resilience to win fame and hide the truth of her ancestry, even if that means enlisting the help of an embittered immortal familiar whose secrets could cost her everything. So I think there could be a bit of enemies delivered in here, maybe reluctant allies or something like that. But of the people that I know that have read this, so I have a few friends on Instagram who have read this and absolutely adored it. Some of the quotes that I've seen from this have just been, I think it's going to be my cup of tea. So I'm really, really excited to read this one. It looks a little bit shorter in this edition, but let's see, how many pages is this one? So trying to avoid spoilers. So yeah, it's under 400 pages. It's 379 pages, and I'm not sure if this is going to be part of a series or not. I do need to check that out, but I'm going to read it regardless because I've heard nothing but good things about it. I do think it's a standalone from what I've heard, but I'm hoping it's a standalone. I don't want to be waiting for another series. But yeah, really excited to read this one. As I say, I've really enjoyed Leigh Bardugo's books in the past, so this will be one of the books that I'm reading this week. Then the next book I'm reading is, it's actually got a little protective cover on it, so let me just take it out of this. And it's The Prisoner's Throne by Holly Black. So let me just let that focus. Yeah, The Prisoner's Throne by Holly Black. So this is the sequel to The Stolen Heir by Holly Black, which is part of kind of the Folk of the Air trilogy, the Cruel Prince trilogy, if you've read that. And basically it follows one of the characters from that series' little brother. And I don't want to give too many details because I'm afraid of giving spoilers inadvertently without realising. But yeah, I started this one the other day. I've only read about 10% of it, so it's very much just kind of the introduction of this book. And if you've read the first one, it does kind of just recap where we were at the end of that last book. So yeah, nothing much has really happened, but this will be the other book that I'm reading. So just if I'm maybe feeling a bit fatigued from The Familiar, or if I'm just wanting to pick something else up, or kind of at night time, I'll probably be picking this one up because I think it will be a little less dense than The Familiar. But yeah, those are the two books that I'm going to be reading this week, so I'll keep you updated on how I'm getting on, how I'm enjoying them, kind of how they're going. And then also, obviously, the point of the video is to see how many pages I can read in a week, realistically, as someone who works full time. So yeah, let's see how we get on. So just jumping on to give you a quick update on my page count. So yesterday I read 77 pages of God's Grave, 35 pages of The Familiar, and 68 pages of The Prisoner's Throne. So that brought my total to 180 pages, which is actually better than I expected because I felt like I didn't really have a lot of time to read yesterday. I was filming videos and I had a few errands that I had to run as well. So yeah, pretty happy with that, as I say. Just to give you a quick update on my reading, I'm currently reading The Familiar this morning. So I've read around 35 pages already this morning as well, and I've got up to chapter 12. So this one, I think I called the main protagonist yesterday Louisa, but it's actually Lucia. I completely misread that when I was reading the description, but Lucia is basically a maid within this house, and essentially she comes from Jewish descent. The book is kind of set around the time of the Spanish Inquisition. Anyone who isn't of Christian heritage is, you know, trying to hide any of their maybe Jewish heritage, or, you know, as I say, it's during the Spanish Inquisition, so they're just trying to kind of blend in, pretend that they're Christian so that they are safe. And essentially Lucia works for a family as a maid, and she's treated quite poorly. You know, she has to sleep in the pantry and things like that. One day, basically, her mistress comes down to the kitchens and there's a burnt loaf of bread. She's about to kind of reprimand the cook and Lucia as well, but Lucia has a power where she can do these, what they call milagritos, I believe it is, but they're like little miracles. So she's able to kind of rectify the issue with the bread. So when the lady of the house comes down, she's already kind of rectified the problem, and this is how the lady of the house finds out that Lucia has this power. So the family that she works for aren't kind of the richest within society. They're kind of probably the lowest class of nobility, and they don't have a lot of money. So the lady of the house uses this as an opportunity to kind of further her stead within the society, and basically invites people to kind of see Lucia doing some of these little miracles and things like that. And it's quite interesting. In the past kind of month or so, I've read 2 books that are kind of based around the Spanish Inquisition, completely coincidentally, but it is quite kind of interesting to see how they're incorporating the folklore and the history maybe quite differently. So I believe Leigh Bardugo has taken some inspiration from her own family history, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, so far so good. I'm really enjoying it, really enjoying the writing. I think we're only really getting into the story now of where Lucia is going to go. So basically, because of her little miracles being kind of public now, we're the lady of the house has been kind of showing her off almost as a possession. Her little miracles have caught the eye of a man who's quite high up in nobility and works quite closely with the king, and he's going to be training her to enter these. I'm not really sure exactly what they are. I think I'm going to find out some more as I read, but basically these games where they kind of show their divinity and kind of, you know, like believe the little miracles come from God and that type of thing. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how this goes, but so far the writing's been really good. I love Leigh Bardugo's writing anyway, so I knew I was going to enjoy that. Be interesting to see, because I think this is the first standalone that she's written, so it'll be interesting to see how the pacing goes with this. I think so far it has been pretty, I wouldn't say fast paced, but moderately paced. You know, it's been kind of moving the narrative along quite nicely. So yeah, so far so good, really enjoying it. I'll give you a bit of an update once I've read a bit more on how it's going, but I think so far so good. Really enjoying the storyline, really intrigued to see where it goes and how the story is going to develop. So yeah, give you a bit of an update on that one once I've read a bit more. And then in terms of the Prisoner's Throne, so it's upstairs at the moment, so I don't have it with me, but I am enjoying this one a bit more than The Stolen Heir. So The Stolen Heir was following Wren's perspective. So Wren, again, is a character who was in the Folk of the Heir trilogy. It's hard to give a synopsis of that book without giving some spoilers for that trilogy, so I'll quite loosely tell you kind of what the first book is about, because The Prisoner's Throne is a sequel, but it's kind of following two characters, Wren and Oak, who are on a mission to find this artifact that will kind of help unite some of the different kingdoms within this land. And yeah, I don't want to give too much synopsis of that one because it does kind of give some spoilers for the Cruel Prince series. But yeah, the first book was in Wren's perspective and I did kind of enjoy it. I think I landed on like a 3.5 for that one, but I will say the Folk of the Heir trilogy probably isn't like a 5-star series for me. I do enjoy it, but it sits more at around that 4-star, so I wasn't expecting this series or this duology to be 5-star or anything, so it is kind of meeting my expectations. It's entertaining enough, but it's not anything that I'm probably going to be wowed by. But yeah, The Prisoner's Throne, I am actually about 30% into it and I'm enjoying it a lot more than I did The Stolen Heir. So I think I just like the way that we're reading now from Oak's perspective, and we did also get a little glimpse of some of the characters from the Folk of the Heir trilogy, so it was really nice to kind of get that and kind of get an update on where they are now and what they're doing. But it's not really their story, it's just nice to kind of get hints and glimpses of them within this story as well. But yeah, I think so far I'm enjoying this perspective a little bit more. Again, it's kind of, I'm in and out in terms of being interested in the plot and where it's going, but yeah, as I say, I'm only about 30% in, so we'll see where this one goes. Again, so far it's okay, you know, it's nothing that's kind of wowing me, but definitely one that I would recommend. If you've read the Folk of the Heir trilogy, I think you probably will like this duology because you're just back in that world, you're back in Holly Black's writing. The writing is really the thing that kind of keeps me gripped with those books, and it's the thing that keeps me reading. I really enjoy Holly Black's writing, and I really enjoy the world that she's built with kind of the more traditional depiction of the Fae. So yeah, definitely so far it's going okay. I would imagine it's probably going to be about a 3.5 as well, but we'll see. It could surprise me depending on how the rest of the book goes. So yeah, those are kind of my updates. It's still quite early right now, it's around 7:30, and I'll probably just get a coffee now, probably sit down and read for about an hour before I have to start work. So it's a nice thing about working from home, you do kind of get your morning right up until your start time. I usually start around 9 a.m, so I'll be able to kind of sit down for an hour, maybe read a bit more of The Familiar, or I may catch up on some YouTube depending on how I'm feeling. But yeah, as I say, once I've read a bit more, I'll probably come back and give you a bit of an update later today on what I've read and how many pages I'm kind of sitting at. But so far this morning I've already read 35 pages. Yeah, so far so good. That's a good head start on the day, so hopefully I'll be able to kind of meet that 180 mark again, because as I say, yesterday was a bit of a lower reading day, so I should be able to kind of meet that again. But let's see how we get on. jumping in with a quick update on where I am with The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo, and I'm on page 137, which is chapter 21, and that brings me up to around 100 pages for today so far, so not doing too badly, to be honest. Work was really busy today, so again I just didn't get many breaks to read anything in between, but just been reading here after work for an hour or so, and then I'm going to listen to some more of the audiobook when I'm making dinner. But yeah, I just wanted to give a quick update kind of on where we are with the story and how it's going. And one thing I will say about this one is I'm really enjoying that it has short chapters. You know, some of the chapters have been around 5 pages or something like that, and honestly for me that's just like such a bonus with the book. It just, I don't know why, I mean it could be exactly the same story, but if the chapters are short, it just makes me feel like I can read, you know, 20 pages quicker than I could if it was just one chapter. But yeah, the chapters are quite short in this, even though if I was to discuss the plot and what's happened so far, it probably wouldn't feel like there's been that much happening. But I do think so far we are just really kind of setting up this world, setting up the time period, setting up kind of the background to who these people are, why they're working together, and kind of what their histories are. Obviously we've got Lucia, who, as I said before, her kind of familial history is a little bit jaded. She wasn't really sure exactly who she was, and she has an aunt in here as well who's kind of married into nobility. You get a pug snort every time I have a vlog. I'll just leave that one in there. But yeah, basically her aunt has kind of married into nobility, so she has quite a good relationship with her, but a lot of people don't actually know that it's her aunt because association with obviously a scullery maid and things like that just wouldn't be great for her image. So while they meet quite frequently, no one actually knows that they're related. But she has ended up being kind of a pivotal part of Lucia's story because it is her husband who is actually championing Lucia for the king, so as part of his kind of magical establishment. And basically we have actually met Centangle. I'm totally sick. It's kind of spelled St. Angel, but I think it's Centangle. And he is basically the male love interest in this, I believe. So far, we don't really know a lot about him. We're kind of getting snippets of who he is, that he's immortal, and we don't really know why, we don't really know how, we don't really know how he knows Victor, who is Lucia's aunt's husband, and why they're connected. We just know that he's kind of bonded to him in some way. So we're not really sure how he fits into the picture or why he's there or why he would help Lucia. But so far, I'm really intrigued by his characterization. He seems like he's very aloof, you know, he's very standoffish, but for some reason I can already kind of see that he has a soft spot for Lucia. So I'll be interested to see how that relationship grows and how it changes. And I love that kind of reluctant allies, kind of trainer-trainee dynamic as well. And we're getting a lot of that in here at the moment because she's kind of starting her training for the trials and for the kind of competition to see if she can work for the king. So yeah, there's quite a lot going on, but I do so far really enjoy the writing in here. I've really enjoyed the pacing. I think while there isn't a lot happening, as I say, because of the short chapters and just the way Leigh Bardugo writes, I do think that the pace always feels a little bit faster, and you know, I'm not bored or anything. There's enough to keep me entertained and there's enough to keep me going, but I think the story is really about to kick off now at this point. So I think this is probably about a third through the book, maybe just slightly less than a third through the book, and I do think that the story is probably gonna kick off and kind of expand now as well. So yeah, I think probably past this point I'll probably not be able to tell you too much about the plot in terms of what's going on because it probably will be spoilers, but I will check in as I periodically, just in terms of obviously how many pages I've done and if, you know, my feelings are changing, if I'm still loving it, if it's maybe slowed down a little bit, and yeah, give you my thoughts and feelings on it. But yeah, I'll probably not tell you too much more about the plot because I don't want to spoil anything. But yeah, so far today, as I said, around 100 pages. I'm just about to make dinner and I'll probably just listen to the audiobook when I'm doing that as well. Then later I'll obviously read a little bit before bed. I may read a little bit this evening as well. Usually I would be watching TV with my husband, but there is football on tonight, so it's the Euros. So if you're from the US, it's soccer, but it's the Euro Championship, something like that. I don't really know, but my husband's from England, so he will be watching that game. They're playing tonight, so I will have a few hours where he'll be watching that and I'll maybe read, but I may actually catch up on YouTube. So just depends how I feel. If I'm a little bit tired, I may catch up on YouTube instead. But yeah, so far around 100 pages. I imagine I probably will be able to read another 80 pages to kind of match yesterday, but I'm not really putting a target on it. It's, as I say, this week is really about tracking how much I realistically read. I do know that kind of yesterday and today were my 2 days where I would have the most time to read, because tomorrow I do have to take Frank to the vets, and then Thursday I actually have a concert. I'm going to see Shania Twain, so that's really fun. And then on Friday I have a nail appointment after work as well, so usually that's when I read my most, but hopefully I'll still get some time to read within those days. You know, as I say, if work's a little bit quiet, what, I can maybe read in between breaks, and Thursday morning I'll usually get up quite early to try and read. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how many pages I get read in those days. But yeah, as I say, I'll check in with you when I have a bit more reading updates and a bit more in terms of how many pages I've managed to read. But yeah, that's all the updates for now. So as I say, I'll check in with you once I've read a little bit more. Hi all, so it's around 10 past 10 now and we still got a little bit of light, but it's probably a bit dark at the moment. But just jumping on to let you know that I managed to get to page 189 of The Familiar. So all in all so far today, that means my page count is 149. So I'm just about to get ready for bed, and I probably will pick up The Prisoner's Throne. So I'll probably read a bit of it. Usually I do read about, between 20 and 30 pages before bed. So I'll probably end up on roughly the same as I got yesterday, so around 180 pages. But I'll give you an update on that one tomorrow and let you know how many I read. I'd say, for me, anything over 100 in a day is really successful. So far I'm really happy with the amount I've been reading. But yeah, as I say, I'll give you an update tomorrow on what I end up reading of The Prisoner's Throne, and probably give you an update on how I'm liking it as well. But yeah, that's all for today. I'm gonna, as I say, get ready for bed, read a bit of Prisoner's Throne, have the gym in the morning, so I'm up early, up at 6 o'clock. So yeah, definitely ready for bed. So just jumping on to give you a quick roundup of yesterday's reading. So I didn't actually give you the total that I got to yesterday, but I read 149 pages of The Familiar, and then before bed I only managed to read 29 pages of The Prisoner's Throne. So I didn't read too much there, but I think that got me at around 178 if my maths is right. I'll put it on the screen, but if my maths is right, I think that's about 178 pages. So pretty much on par with what I read the day before. So I think I got to do around 180 on Monday. So today's Wednesday. I haven't had as much time to read today, unfortunately, so I did have a bit of a IT issue with work, so spent most of my day trying to fix my laptop, and then I did have to bring Frank to the vets today, so we didn't have as much time after work for reading either, and this is a gym day, so again, no morning reading really either, so it was just really while I was getting ready, listening to the audiobook. So far today I've read from page 188 up to 240, so I'm on chapter 36 of The Familiar, so I've read around 51 pages, which actually isn't bad considering, as I say, I haven't really had time to read. And I think in terms of my feelings for the book, I think it's kind of still the same. I'm really liking the writing style, really liking it does kind of feel like historical fiction. So I think if you're a historical fiction fan, you will probably like this because the magic element of it isn't really that prevalent in it. It's very much more magical realism, I would say, than a kind of true fantasy, especially compared to some of maybe Leigh Bardugo's other books. I would say this one definitely has more of a historical fiction feel rather than that pure fantasy. So yeah, I think even if it's not your usual genre, you don't normally kind of veer towards this type of thing, definitely give it a go if you do like historical fiction. But yeah, the one thing I will say is that the love interest is kind of love interesting right now. So we've kind of got to the point where there's things happening with them, there's kind of feelings being discussed and things going on. There's been some revelations about him as well, how he came to be who he is, how he is, and it was quite an interesting premise. So I'll be interested to see how that kind of goes, because basically him and Lucia will be, joining together to see if they can rectify his situation, for want of a better term, or without being able to kind of give spoilers. But the rest of the book I think will be them kind of working together to try and figure that out, and probably to figure out where Lucia gets her power from as well. I think there may be a few revelations there before the end of the book. But yeah, as I say, continuing to enjoy it, continuing to like the writing style and the story. I don't know if it's quite 5-star. I think there are some bits of it that feel a little bit slower, but it's definitely in the 4-star realm so far. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. As I say, there's still about 30% left. I'll probably finish this between tonight and tomorrow morning. My audiobook says around 2.5 hours left, so I think I'll easily finish this by tomorrow. So I'll probably give you an update once I'm finished with this one. just jumping on to give a quick update on this vlog. So I think the last time I spoke to you was Thursday and it's now Saturday. So in hindsight, this probably wasn't a great week to start this vlog, but it is a realistic week in reading. You know, sometimes you have plans, sometimes you don't. But as I say, realistically speaking, this is probably maybe a good week to discuss my reading, but it does mean that I have quite a few updates. So Thursday night, I did end up going to Shania Twain. So I had a concert that night, didn't get home till quite late. So obviously there wasn't too much reading done after work or anything. So in total, I read 110 pages on Thursday. And then yesterday I was a little bit tired from getting home late on Thursday, and then I did have a nail appointment as well, so I got some new nails, and it just meant that kind of my evening reading, there wasn't really a lot of time for that either. Friday is a gym day, so I didn't have reading time before work, so I only read 74 pages yesterday as well, but still pretty good. You know, that was just kind of before bed reading and getting ready for bed reading, so it wasn't too bad all in all. But yeah, it does mean that I have a few updates. So I've managed to finish The Familiar. I believe I finished this on Thursday morning. So this one, it's difficult for me to rate it, so I think I am going to stick with a 4 for this one. I was expecting this to be 5 stars, but there's a few reasons that it wasn't that, and I will get to that. But yeah, I think it was maybe just not what I was expecting from the story, and I think that's kind of maybe that's a me issue. Maybe I shouldn't have been going in with such expectations about it. But yeah, I think, as I say, it was kind of a story built around the Spanish Inquisition, so I think a lot of my expectations on this being a bit more fantasy heavy kind of meant that I was surprised by how historical fiction it felt. You know, to me, I think that the magical and the fantasy element of it was very, very minimal. It kind of felt a bit more like magical realism. There wasn't really a lot to do with the fantasy element other than discussions of, you know, magical pacts gone wrong, curses, and kind of Lucia's milagritos, so her little miracles. So it was kind of much more of a magical realism story with a lot of historical fiction. And again, that's not something that I necessarily don't like. It's just not what I was kind of expecting from this story. I think for some reason I thought this was about vampires. It's definitely not. There's no vampires in this, but again, that was my issue with imagining that it was about something that it wasn't. But I think for me, the main reason I didn't get kind of the 5-star feel from this was because the pacing for me was a little bit clunky and a little bit off, and I think some of that can be attributed to it was written in third person, but it was almost multi-POV, so we were getting the point of view of several different characters within it, and sometimes it was kind of a little bit clunky in the way that they interconnected or the way they were woven, and it didn't really help in terms of the flow of the story. I would also say that for the most part of this story, up until maybe like the 70 to 75% mark, the pacing was extremely slow. There was a lot of setup, there was a lot of kind of build up to what was going to happen, and then everything kind of happened in the last 25 to 20%. And again, it's not that I necessarily don't like that. I think just that we didn't get enough of the character build up and maybe an understanding of each individual character, or even the two main characters, because of those multi POVs. It kind of meant the time was taken away from the two main characters that were in here, which meant in terms of the romance, I wasn't 100% invested in it. So again, it could just be an expectation thing from my part that I maybe expected it to be something a little bit different than what it was. But that being said, I think the writing in here was phenomenal. I think it was really beautiful. It was very lyrical. It was very atmospheric. I think she really set up kind of the environment that they were in really, really well. I felt the oppression that the characters were feeling. I felt kind of the tension that they would feel in terms of just watching every little step that they made to ensure that they weren't suspected of being a Jew or, you know, not being a Christian. And I think if I had went into it with the expectations of this being a bit more historical fiction heavy, then I probably would have enjoyed it a little bit more. So again, this could just be a perception thing from my side of things, but the main reason, as I say, that I'm actually knocking it down from a 5 to a 4 is because of the pacing and because of the duration of time that we spent kind of building up the characters. And I'll be honest, at times I didn't really like the main character, even though I do feel that she was living a life of horrendous oppression, and in terms of kind of her immediate employers and the environment that she was in, and maybe that was the point. Maybe she wasn't supposed to be a 100% likable person, but some of her decisions did seem a little bit selfish and brash. And again, I'm not really sure if that's just the way I was taking it or if it is the way that it was intended, but again, it just meant that I wasn't always rooting for what she wanted to do. But yeah, I think other than that, as I say, the writing was really good. It's definitely one that I would still recommend to pick up. If you like Leigh Bardugo, you'll probably like this one. Her writing is stunning in this. It's very lyrical. Just be mindful that it probably is going to feel a bit more like historical fiction while you're reading it, rather than kind of a fantasy or a fantasy romance, which is kind of what I believed it was going to be. But yeah, I think with this one, usually she does write series, and I'm not sure if this being a standalone, and a pretty short standalone actually as well. It was 450 pages. I'm not sure if that maybe hampered kind of the experience I had with her writing, and as well, because this is kind of based on her family history, there's maybe just a bit of a structure that she needed to follow to tell the story. So yeah, as I say, 4 stars is still a really, really good rating. You know, I still really enjoyed the writing. I was still invested enough in the story to kind of continue. It was nowhere near a DNF or anything like that. Just not quite what I was expecting. It was a little less fantasy driven than I maybe would have liked, but the story was really lyrical. The atmosphere that she built was really beautiful as well. So yeah, overall I give this one 4 stars. So the only other book that I'm still currently reading is The Prisoner's Throne by Holly Black, and I'm at page 276 on this one, so almost finished. I think there's only maybe about 90 to 100 pages left. But I'm really, really enjoying this one, a lot more than I thought I was going to, because when I read The Stolen Heir, I wasn't really vibing with it that much. It was probably sitting at around like a 3 to 3.5. But reading this from Oak's POV and kind of getting a bit more of the characters that we were used to from the Folk of the Air series, I think that's maybe, potentially it's nostalgia from reading that series, but it is meaning that my enjoyment of it is a little bit more elevated than it was when I was reading The Stolen Heir. But I think just with all of Holly Black's books, the main thing that kind of hinders my enjoyment of it is I just wish they were dual POV, because I think in her stories there's so much scheming, so much politics, so much trickery going on that dual POV would just really, really help it. Because I think when you're just getting it from one point of view, yes, it's great to kind of have those reveals, but one of the things I really love in stories like this is kind of seeing both sides maybe having their secrets, wondering when's it going to come out, when are they going to find out what they've done, when is there going to be, you know, an explosion of this information that they've just learned. And for this, it's just kind of a slow build up to kind of things that will happen. And again, it was the same kind of the first 3 books in the Folk of the Air trilogy, the same with The Stolen Heir. You didn't really understand the others' motives or anything like that, and I think it just means that then you don't connect with that character because you're not getting their point of view. Obviously Ren's point of view was in The Stolen Heir, so I kind of connected with how she was feeling, so we do kind of know her in this book, but it almost feels like she's a slightly different character because we're reading from Oak's POV, so it just makes it feel a little bit disjointed for me. But other than that, I love Holly Black's writing. I love the world that she's built. I love the kind of traditional fae representation that she has in here, and it's much more close to the folklore, and I think just the characters are a lot more intriguing because she's delving into that proper kind of folklore power. It's not just a case of they're immortal and they have all these different powers. You know, there's different types of fairies and different types of kind of creatures that they have there, and I really, really love it. So that's kind of the thing that keeps me sticking with this series, because I think without that it probably wouldn't be that intriguing for me. But I just think her writing and kind of her world that she's built is really, really good. So yeah, I've got 100 pages left and I'm intrigued to see where it goes. I am quite invested in the love story within this one, so I'm really hoping that we're going to get a happy ending for these two, but we'll see how it goes. Everything's kind of working against them at the moment, but hoping that they will resolve it by the end. And then because I'm kind of trying to think about my next read, I will obviously finish The Prisoner's Throne as well, but I think the next one I'm going to pick up is this one, so A Queen This Fierce and Deadly, and it's the 4th series in the Kingdom of Lies series by Stasia Stark. So I've read the first 3, obviously, really, really enjoyed them. Book 3 ended on a bit of a cliffhanger. And if you don't know what this one's about, basically it's about a realm where you're not allowed to have magic. It's illegal to possess your own magic. When you're a baby, your magic is taken from you and you're given it back whenever you're 25, you know, a portion of it back. Basically because the king says he needs that magic to protect the realm from the wicked fae. So of course, the main FMC from this book has magic. It's discovered in the first book, so she has to kind of go on the run. Along the way, she runs into some mercenaries who aren't really wanting to help her. She's not really wanting to ally with them. But the more they kind of bump into each other, they realise that a partnership may be mutually beneficial. There's of course a love interest within that group. There's a lot of found family within that group. So the story kind of goes from there. But all I'll say is if you like romantasy and you like kind of romantasy that has a bit more of a political background as well, you'll probably really like this one. I've absolutely devoured the first 3 books. Really intrigued to see where this one goes, as I say, because book 3 ended on a cliffhanger, so this will probably count towards this week's reading. I'm not sure how long it is. Let me just have a look. So this one's 626 pages, so I very much doubt I'm going to get this finished by tomorrow, so for the end of the week of our reading challenge. But I will be starting reading this today, so we'll see how far I get tomorrow in my reading. I don't really have any plans tomorrow, so I may have quite a significant amount of time to get some of this read, but if I don't finish it by tomorrow, then I'll definitely come in and do a bit of an update on this, just to let you know kind of my final thoughts on it. But yeah, excited to read this one. I feel like I've been reading quite a lot of heavy, maybe darker books at the moment, in terms of, you know, quite heavy topics, quite thought-provoking topics, or just books that have been a little bit too heavy on the political side of things. So I'm really excited to jump into one that's maybe a bit more fun, a bit more fast-paced, a bit more romance heavy, and yeah, concluding a series. I was going to pick up a few others that are on my radar at the moment, which are a bit more romance heavy than this book, but I thought I would be responsible rather than starting yet another series. I'm going to try and round out one that I've already started, and yeah, it's an anticipated read for me, so it makes sense to kind of start this one rather than any of the others. Hi, so I've just been editing and realised I never closed out this vlog. So basically, I think the last time I was speaking to you, I was just about to finish The Prisoner's Throne and about to start A Queen This Fierce and Deadly. And essentially, it's a few days after that. So today is Tuesday, and I think that was on Saturday or Sunday. So yeah, I finished The Prisoner's Throne. Really enjoyed it. I don't think I have too much else to say than what I was saying then. So really enjoyed the whimsy of it, really enjoyed the world of it. There's a few bits in there that were kind of a bit meandering that I didn't really care about, so it kind of took me out of the story a little bit. But in terms of the love story and in terms of the overall plot, I really did enjoy that one. I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed The Stolen Heir, and the glimpses that we got of the characters from the Folk of the Air trilogy were just absolutely perfect. It really made it better for me. So I ended up on a 4-star for that one. And then I did start A Queen This Fierce and Deadly, and of course didn't finish it. I think there was around 600 pages in that book. So I haven't even finished it yet. I think I've still got like 100 pages left, but didn't finish it by the end of the week. But a few of the pages did count towards the weekly count. So I'll just go through the amount of pages that I ended up reading. So on Monday, I read 180 pages. On Tuesday, I read 178 pages. On Wednesday, I read 119. On Thursday, I read 110. On Friday, I read 74. I had a few busy days. On Saturday, I read 182. And then on Sunday, I read 171, and that gave me a total of 1,036 pages over the week. So I think that was pretty good. As I say, last week I did have quite a busy week. I had a few appointments that I had to go to, a few different social events and things like that. So, you know, depending on what way you look at it, it was either a really good week for me to do that video or a really bad week. It was realistic, and that's, you know, kind of the point of the video, to show what I read realistically in a week. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I mean, if I kind of read that on a weekly basis, I'd say that is pretty average for me. I think that was like 2 1/3 books or something like that. So in any given week, you know, I will have other things on, and reading is very much a hobby for me, so it's not something I do for work or anything. But yeah, I'd say that's probably pretty average. It's maybe a little bit below average. I do tend to read maybe 3 books a week, but again, considering all the things I had on, I don't think that's too bad. Let me know how much you normally read in a week. You know, are you quite a fast reader? Are you quite a slow reader? I mean, for me, there's no comparison. It doesn't really matter if you read 1 book a week, 1 book a month, you know, as long as you're reading. That's all that really matters. If you like this video, do remember to give it a like. And if you want to see more from me, do remember to subscribe as well. I'd love to have you as part of this little community, and I'll be posting loads of videos like this. So reading vlogs, wrap-ups, book hauls, all good bookish things like that. And if you do have any suggestions for books you'd like to see from me, definitely put it down in the comments below. Other than that, thanks so much for watching this one. I do hope that you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one soon. Bye!